And I don't want to disrespect churches or people that go to churches, because I think it's great. But, you know, what made me stop going was that I did always feel what I felt was social pressure to do or be a certain way.
Yeah.
And that it doesn't jive with the message, and it makes people feel uncomfortable in churches where that's the case, where there's some pressing social pressure to be a certain way. So to me that's the challenge that the church has. They, you know, and I think that Christians are actually doing an amazing job. I think there's been a big recognition of that issue, and I think that a lot of churches are coming around, and I think that is super good. And I'm very, very optimistic for Christianity's future. I think that there's so much good happening in the church. But I don't feel a big need to be the one, you know, at the church, in the midst of some of this chaos. To me, the message is loud and clear. I'm always asking questions to God, always trying to continue to learn and grow in my faith. I don't think you have to go to church to do that. I've certainly grown so much spiritually in the last couple of years. Have probably been to church maybe once, but I have grown leaps and bounds on my own. Leaps and bounds. I feel better about my relationship with God than ever before without a church. Maybe that's controversial. Maybe people don't think that's possible, but I think it's absolutely doable and cool. And I you know, that's something that I think. I don't know. How do you feel about all that?
At the end of the day, God wants you to return to him. And if you're doing that, then that's what matters. It's not what other people's opinions matter. It's not about going through the right motions and, you know, religionizing yourself or becoming a churchian kind of person where you're like obeying these cultural rules. Like, God wants you. He wants your soul to like overcome its fallen state and return home to its place with God and his kingdom for eternity. And if you're doing that, then you're doing that. And let the other people have their doubts and their criticisms and their debates, you know. I mean, there's scriptures I could pull up about, you know, don't forsake the gathering and blah, 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 you know, and some people can take that out of context or misconstrue it and that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, what seems much more important is your relationship with God. And along the way, there's a lot of different, like, there's advice that people can give that's actually good and healthy on how to do that. But also, if you're doing that on your own, like, do that on your own. That's what God wants. That's what you should be doing.
Yeah. And no, that's a good point. And, you know, I guess we're having this conversation Christian to Christian. I would never, ever discourage people from going to church. Ever. Ever, ever, ever. I think that basically people need to go to church. Even though that is hypocritical. It's completely hypocritical, but I think basically you're going to learn a lot. Regardless of where you end up, you know. And I'm really grateful for the time that I was a regular churchgoer. I'm really, really grateful for it. I mean, you learn a lot. Even if somebody goes and they totally hate it, they will learn something. I guarantee it.
Yeah. And I think there is like some beauty and power in being around fellow believers, singing the same songs, hearing the same message, fellowshipping, laughing, talking. Like, there's beauty and power in that. Are you going to go to hell if you miss Sunday? No. Are you going to go to hell if you don't take communion this Sunday with your church? Like, no. And I think you're kind of missing the point of Jesus, you know. A lot of his parables actually were kind of him refuting the Pharisees for him doing stuff on the Sabbath, right? We're actually talking about this, ironically, at church on Sunday when I went to church. He was talking about the religiosity and how people become these man-made ideas of faith instead of like Jesus is standing there and the Pharisees are telling him to his face, like, you're not being a good Christian. You know, I'm like paraphrasing here, like, you're not being a good Christian because you and your disciples are working on the Sabbath, because you're like harvesting grain and eating it. And Jesus is like, dude, I'm right here. Like, they're with me. I'm condoning this, bro. Like, and it's like they just don't get it. It's like they've become so stuck in their like man-made rules and customs and culture, and they obey their man-made laws, like discounting the fact that God is right here being like, hey man, it's cool. Like, we're having a good time.
Yeah.
Chill, bro. But we get in this religious thing where it's like, well, God wouldn't want you to do that, when sometimes God is like sitting here slapping you in the head like, I don't care if you do that, or like, I don't mind if you don't do that. What I want you to do is to be with me, to trust me, to love me, to put your faith in me. It's not about not doing something on a Saturday. You know? So sometimes it can be a little ridiculous. Sometimes it's good for people. Like for me personally, I really like and appreciate going to church every Sunday, because I wasn't raised in a church. Because I spent my whole life like literally being a non-believer, hating church, hating God, you know, not being in church. And now that like I am found, I really do actually find like a lot of love and appreciation by going every week. Do I think if I miss next Sunday, I'm going to hell? No. But like, I just really like that it brings me closer to God, and I appreciate it because I wasn't. But like someone, like I meet people all the time who are like, my parents drag me to church every Sunday. They put me in uncomfortable clothes. They made me say these words. They made me do this. Right. You know, like I kind of knew who they really were. I really knew that they weren't being very righteous, even though they were forcing me to go through all the motions. And it causes people to like lose their faith in God by forcing these like rituals and this religion on other people, when in reality, like someone like you could be like, you know what, I have a relationship with God, and that's all that matters. And like, I don't need a building or a body of people to help me with that, you know. And going back to what we were saying earlier, like God just calls people to do different things and have different paths. And it's easy for us to point and be like, you're not doing what I want you to do, you're bad. You're not doing what I think you should do, you're bad. But like, if God's calling you to do something, like you should actually be doing that, regardless of what you're quote unquote supposed to do or what people want you to do.